He called her Baron. I heard it whispered from behind the church, where they used to praise her cooking. And that was only the beginning. The coffee cup shattered before I realized I'd dropped it. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, porcelain slicing into the silence like a scalpel. Outside, the kids were screaming, playful, wild, alive. Inside, it was just me, broken ceramic and her, kneeling wordlessly, already picking up the pieces I'd spilled. She didn't ask if I was okay. She never did. She just moved, like someone who'd been taught long ago that fixing messes was the only way to be wanted. I wanted to scream, at her, at the world, at myself. Instead, I crouched beside her. "Don't!" My voice cracked. "You don't clean up for me." She paused, a shard in her hand, then looked at me, not in fear, not even in confusion, just stillness, like she was waiting for the next command. I saw her then, really saw her. And I hated the mirror she held up to me. I wasn't him, but once I might have been close. Later, we stood in front of the town hall, where the annual fair buzzed like a beehive. I held her hand, not because she needed it, but because I did. A group from her old life passed by, her ex-husband, arm around his new wife, parents tight-lipped behind them. They saw her, saw us, saw the kids she now tucked into bed and fed with laughter, not duty. "Mom!" one of the girls shouted, tugging her sleeve. "Can we go to the petting zoo now?" I watched her ex's face twist, recognition, then shame. His wife looked away. His mother tightened her lips like a purse of judgments, but she just smiled down at the child. "Of course, honey." Not once did she look back. I started thinking about when it all began. She didn't belong anywhere when I found her. The rain that night was biblical, like the sky wanted to drown something. I'd been driving back from the mill, headlights slicing through sheets of water, when I saw her by the side of the road. No suitcase, no umbrella, just soaked to the bone, holding a paper grocery bag that was collapsing in her arms. I pulled over. She didn't approach, just stood there, eyes hollow like someone who'd already been turned away too many times to hope. "You headed somewhere?" I asked. She shook her head. "Got family around here?" She didn't answer. "Okay," I said. "Well, I'm not leaving you in this storm." She hesitated, then slid into the passenger seat like she was stealing something. I offered her dry clothes when we got to my place. She took them, dressed in silence, and sat on the edge of the couch like a guest who wasn't staying. I didn't press her for stories. I'd learned by then. People tell the truth when they feel safe, not when you interrogate them. The kids were curious. "Who is she?" they whispered, wide-eyed. "A friend," I said. That was enough. The first few weeks, she barely spoke. She cooked meals she didn't eat. She folded laundry that wasn't hers. She kept her hands busy and her eyes down. But the kids loved her, because she listened, because she saw them, and because she never tried to be anything she wasn't. One night, I found her in the hallway, sitting on the floor outside the nursery, knees to her chest. I sat down beside her. "You can't sleep?" I asked. She shook her head. Then, after a long pause, "I used to have a room. It had a crib. We painted it mint green. They said it would calm the baby." I didn't move, just waited. "It stayed empty," she said. The words came slowly, like she was dragging them up from somewhere deep. "They ran tests, hormones, scans, specialists, all of it." Her voice tightened. "His mother said I was cursed, that I'd tricked their son." I clenched my jaw. She called me a tomb, a hollow woman. That word stayed with me. Hollow. I wanted to find that mother and make her eat every syllable. But I didn't say that. I just said, "You're not empty." She looked at me. Eyes swollen, not from crying, but from holding it in too long. "You built a home," I said. You gave these kids more warmth in a week than most get in a year. That's not nothing." She blinked hard, then looked away. I didn't touch her. I didn't try to fix it. I just stayed there, next to her, in that narrow hallway, until the silence stopped being heavy. But it wasn't until the spring festival that I saw what it meant for her to stay. They asked her to help organize the school booth. She said no at first. She was afraid to be seen, afraid her name might still mean shame to someone. But the principal insisted. "You're good with the kids," she said. "They love you." She showed up in a plain blue dress and tied back her hair. When I saw her surrounded by laughter and crayons and sticky little fingers, I realized something. She wasn't surviving anymore. She was choosing. And they were watching. The town. The ones who had whispered. The ones who had nodded along when her ex-husband told his half-truths. They saw her now, and they didn't look away. She baked cookies that day. Not for us, for the fundraiser. A small gesture, maybe, but I saw her hands tremble when she arranged them on the plate. Sugar dusted the counter, stuck to her cheek. I didn't say anything, just watched. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I sat down at the piano. I hadn't touched it since Ellen died. Our old upright stood in the corner of the living room like a forgotten relic, keys yellowing, out of tune. But something about that day, her quiet defiance, the way she smiled at the kids without flinching, like she finally belonged, it cracked something open in me. I played the song Ellen used to hum while cooking. She turned from the oven, startled, not by the sound, by the memory, I think. Music has a way of unearthing things. "You play," she said softly. "Used to." She came closer, wiping her hands on a towel. She didn't ask about Ellen. She never pried. That was her kindness. She let you keep your ghosts until you were ready. "Want to learn?" I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. That afternoon, I taught her a simple melody. Her fingers were hesitant, awkward, but determined. The kids clapped. She laughed. Not a polite laugh, a real one. And for the first time, I saw a woman reclaiming her breath. The shift was subtle at first. She started going out more, grocery store, library, even the community center. People greeted her now, by name, not with pity, but with something closer to respect. That's when the whispers started reaching me. "You know who she is, right? Didn't her husband leave her? Heard she couldn't—" I never let them finish. At the hardware store, I overheard a man snort, "Too bad she can't give him any more kids." I turned to him, calm and cold. "She gave mine a mother. That's more than your wife ever did." His face went slack. I didn't wait for a reply. Back home, I didn't tell her. Not because I wanted to protect her, but because I knew she wouldn't want me to fight her battles. She was winning them in her own way. Then came the dinner invitation. From her ex-husband's family, an email. Polite, formal, sterile. They wanted to clear the air. His mother even used the phrase rebuild bridges. She stared at the screen a long time. "Do I have to go?" she asked. "No," I said. "But you could." "Why now?" "You've become undeniable," I said. "That scares them." She looked at me, eyes narrowing. "I'm not going to apologize for who I am," she said. "Good," I replied, "because they're the ones who should be ashamed." She closed the laptop. She froze. I touched her hand. "She's not your grandma," I said quietly. The girl nodded. "Good. I like our mom better anyway." And just like that, her lip trembled, but she didn't cry. Not yet. It was supposed to be a quiet Sunday. The kind where nothing happens, just coffee, cartoons, and the hum of laundry in the background. But quiet never lasts, not when ghosts learn to dial phones. He showed up without warning. I opened the door, and there he was, her ex-husband. Collared shirt, practiced smile, a bouquet in hand like he thought this was some kind of apology tour. I didn't move. "I'd like to speak with her," he said, voice oiled with civility. I stared at the flowers. Pale lilies. Wrong choice. Funereal. "She doesn't want to see you." "She can decide that." She already did. He tried to peer past me, like the house might suddenly spit her out if he looked hard enough. I didn't raise my voice, didn't slam the door. I just stood there until his smile cracked. "I'll be at the church on Main," he muttered, stepping back. "Tell her. It's important." I closed the door. She was standing behind me. I hadn't heard her come in. Her face was stone. "I'll go," she said. "You don't have to. I want to see what lies look like when they lose their shape." She wore the same dress she'd worn the first day the town started calling her by name. No makeup, no jewelry, just truth and posture. I drove her, but stayed in the truck, watched her enter the church alone. From the window, I saw them sit, opposite sides of a pew, like a courtroom. I couldn't hear what was said, but I saw him gesture wildly. Saw his mother arrive midway through and fold her arms. Saw the moment her shoulders dropped like something broke inside. She came out 15 minutes later, hands shaking, lip bitten raw. "Let's go," she said. She didn't speak until we got home. Then she went straight to the kitchen, pulled the peach cobbler off the windowsill, and hurled it into the sink. The crash echoed. I found her in the hallway, fists clenched, eyes glassy. "They wanted me to take the blame," she said. "They said if I admitted to lying about the tests, if I said I hid things, then the community would stop talking." I froze. "They said it's ruining their new marriage," she whispered, "that she's feeling pressured, that they might sue for defamation if I don't retract what never even left my mouth." I moved toward her. She flinched, not from me, but from everything. I backed off, let her breathe. Then I said the only thing that mattered: "We'll burn it all down before we let them silence you." She didn't nod, didn't speak, just turned and walked into the backyard. There, in the garden she'd planted from scratch, she ripped out the tomatoes, one by one, hands in the dirt, like she was trying to pull the past out by its roots. I watched her, unable to stop her grief. Later, after the kids were asleep, I sat on the porch. She joined me. Her hands were scratched, dirt under her nails. "I thought I was past it," she said. "You are," I answered. "They're not." I almost said yes, she whispered. I wanted it to stop. I wanted to be small again, if it meant quiet. I turned to her. "And?" She looked me dead in the eyes. "And then I remembered how my name sounded when your daughter called me Mom." That's when she cried. Not because she was broken, because she'd realized she never had been. The next morning, something shifted. She didn't make breakfast, didn't braid the girls' hair, didn't check their lunch boxes like she always did. Instead, she sat at the table with a yellow legal pad and wrote. Line after line. I watched her hand move like she was drawing blood from herself. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't look up. "I'm not just going to survive this." Her voice was low, steady. "I'm going to end it." She didn't mean revenge, not the kind with fire and headlines. She meant exposure, truth, the kind of justice that leaves no room for denial. She called the clinic where they'd done the fertility tests years ago, asked for copies. The receptionist hesitated until she gave her full name. Then there was a pause. "Oh," the woman said, quieter. "That case." She hung up with an appointment time. She called a friend, old college roommate, now a lawyer upstate. Spoke in a voice I hadn't heard before, precise, controlled. "No, I'm not suing," she said. "I want my medical records, and I want an affidavit from the technician who ran the test. Yes, that one." By noon, she'd printed emails, text messages, Old calendars, proof, a web, the outline of a story only she could tell. "What are you planning?" I asked again. She looked at me finally. "They want the whispers to stop. I'll give them something louder." That night, we drove out to the next county. Small paper, independent, still clinging to its spine. She handed the editor her folder. "I don't want money. I don't want pity," she said. "I want the truth printed, on record." The woman behind the desk raised an eyebrow. "This story could make people uncomfortable." She smiled. "Then they'll finally feel what I've felt for 5 years." We walked out in silence. On the way home, she asked, "Do you think they'll believe me?" I didn't answer right away. Then, "It doesn't matter. The ones who need to believe already do." She stared out the window. "I used to pray for forgiveness, for not being enough, for not giving them a child." The road stretched black ahead of us. "But I don't want forgiveness anymore," she said. "I want them to say thank you, for the years, for the effort, for surviving their silence." I nodded. "Then make them watch you live." We stopped at a diner. She ordered fries and a milkshake and laughed when the whipped cream spilled over the edge. It felt normal, real. A woman from our town walked in halfway through the meal. She froze when she saw us, then, slowly, walked over. "I read what's starting to spread," she said to her. "And I wanted to say sorry for not saying anything when I heard what they said about you. We all should have known better." She didn't answer, just looked at the woman for a long moment. Then, "I didn't need you to know better. I needed you to speak." The woman nodded, ashamed. She added gently, "But thank you for saying something now." The diner was quiet when we left. As we walked to the truck, she squeezed my hand. Not for comfort, for grounding, for choice. "I'm not scared anymore," she said. And I believed her. The town fair came back in June. It was the same as every year. Sun-faded tents, sticky lemonade, local bands trying to stay in tune. But this time, her name was on the volunteer list, not buried at the bottom, centered, in bold. She wore a red scarf that day, tied neatly around her neck like armor. I stood with the kids near the popcorn stand while she set up the community table. Donation box, flyers for the new women's shelter, her peach cobbler cut into perfect squares. People approached her, not out of guilt, out of respect. One man leaned in and said, "I have a sister who went through the same thing." She read the article, said it gave her voice back. She thanked him without blinking. I knew her well enough now to see what that meant. Her jaw didn't tighten. Her hands didn't tremble. She was steady. Later that afternoon, we met with her lawyer friend at a small cafe near the courthouse. They sat by the window, folders open, notes scribbled in shorthand I couldn't follow. The plan wasn't vengeance. It was documentation. There had been at least 2 other women who'd left her ex-husband's family broken, quietly. One of them had filed a complaint about emotional abuse. Another had tried, then vanished from the town records. She had names now, and one of them agreed to meet. We drove out to the edge of the county, to a small farm with a crooked gate and chickens darting through weeds. The woman, Anna, was older, maybe in her 40s. She wore gardening gloves and a skeptical expression. But when she saw her step out of the truck, everything changed. Anna took off her gloves, took a long breath. "They said you were dangerous," she said. "I was," she replied. "To their illusion." The 2 of them sat on the porch. I gave them space. From a distance, I could hear fragments. "They made me think I was crazy. I stopped trusting my own memory. They rewrote everything I said. And then, I thought I was the only one." They hugged before we left. The kind of hug that doesn't need words. Back in town, we got the email from the festival committee. They were awarding her the Community Advocate of the Year honor. She stared at the screen for a long time. "I don't want their medal," she said. "You earned it," I replied. "No," she said. "I earned this life. The rest is just noise." Still, she agreed to go, but only on one condition. We bring the kids, all of them. I want them front row. So we did. The auditorium was packed. Wooden chairs, bad lighting, the mayor sweating in his blazer. Her ex-husband and his family sat near the back. I saw their posture, too stiff, too aware. When they called her name, the applause wasn't polite. It was thunder. The kids stood up. "Go, Mom!" one of them yelled. She walked to the stage, calm and upright. She didn't make a speech. She took the plaque, turned to the crowd and said, "I was never broken. I was just buried." Then she stepped down. No fanfare, no tears. The children ran to her, wrapping around her waist like roots. And the people who once whispered behind their hands, they stood and clapped. The school board meeting was open to the public. Fluorescent lights buzzed. The air was stale with paperwork and tension. Rows of folding chairs lined the room, half filled with parents, teachers, and the usual sleepy-eyed officials. We sat in the third row. The kids played quietly on a tablet beside us. She wore the same red scarf. Tonight's agenda: new community outreach programs, a bland phrase for something bigger. When the moderator called her name, a few people shifted uncomfortably. Her presence had become inconvenient, not because she was disruptive, but because she refused to stay quiet. She stood, walked to the mic. "I'm not here to reopen wounds," she began, "but I am here to make sure no one else walks through this building believing they don't matter." She talked about silence, about the systems that allowed rumors to win over facts, about how shame is never a one-way street. It needs an audience, complicit in their quiet. And then she said calmly, "My name was once used as a cautionary tale in this town. I've decided to write a better one." When she finished, the room didn't erupt. It didn't need to. The silence was heavier than any applause. Then a voice from the back, "That's enough!" I turned. Her ex-husband was there, standing, pale. "I think we've heard more than enough revisionist history," he said. "We're not here to indulge personal crusades." She didn't flinch, just tilted her head slightly, like observing a dying fire. "I agree," she said. "We're not here for that. We're here to protect what's real. You just never expected that I'd still be standing when the truth showed up." He moved forward. "You think you've won? You embarrassed my family? You turned people against us?" "No," she said, calm as stone. "You did that. I just stopped protecting your illusion." The moderator tried to intervene. "Sir, please, this isn't the time." But it was too late. He was unraveling. "My wife can't have children either," he blurted. "You think that's karma? Is that what you wanted?" That was when the youngest of our daughters stood up. She walked to her, slow, uncertain, and tugged her sleeve. "Mom," she said, "can we go home?" That word, spoken in front of everyone, hit harder than anything else could. She nodded, took her hand, and together we walked out. Past the rows of watching faces, past the man who'd once rewritten her into a ghost, past the weight of a town that no longer owned her story. Outside, the air was cool. She exhaled, not shakily, not in relief, just complete. He didn't follow. He didn't need to. He'd said everything he didn't mean to. And now, the truth wasn't hers alone. It was public. She didn't get revenge. She got a life, and they watched her walk into it, holding a child's hand, head high, with nothing left to prove. She stood at the edge of the field behind our house, barefoot in the morning dew. The kids were chasing fireflies in the fog. Laughter echoed like a lullaby for the past. She didn't look back. Her scarf fluttered in the wind, red, unapologetic. And when the sun rose behind her, it caught the edge of her silhouette, Whole, steady, untouchable. He would never understand how he lost. She would never need him to.